What's going on? To those who will hear this, maybe, if you're smart enough, probably are going to be. So, anyways, I'm going to do. I've been thinking a lot about this place that we live. Some people call it a soul trap matrix, the Loosh farm. So, anyways, it is the Lord of Ord, the 40 digital shaman, and we're going to listen to some videos, make some comments. I'm relating to this one in particular that we're going to start out with. It's a Dr. Christine, I think, Dollar Hand, something like that. Anyways, what's interesting to me is her experience. It's called a pre-birth experience. Now, I remember, for me, what little I know, primarily from a mother, and she said that I was kicking and screaming. It was the worst, I guess, pregnancy she ever had. A lot of kicking and she said, like, you didn't want to come, you didn't want to show up, and I guarantee you, I didn't want to show up. And we're going to see an example of how people are forced to come here against their will. This lady's experience in particular reveals this. Well, that's what she can remember. Now it's up to you and I to believe in her story or not. But as someone who's a doctor, I don't know why she would jeopardize her career by sharing her experience with everyone else. So yeah, we're going to play 2 parts and then make some comments about it. But I can relate to it. I don't know about you. And I've heard a lot of people say that I made an agreement to come here. Now, I don't think so. You might have, but I don't think I made an agreement. There is no way in hell that I would agree to the existence that I've had and the experience that I've had. No way. Endless disappointment, heartache, frustration, pain, suffering. That's just my own personal experience. Now think about the billions of people right now, and many of them having even worse experience than I am having at the present time. Now think of all the billions prior to us. And it's just, people say there's 8 billion people on Earth. Well, if you put all the math and just do a little bit of math, you realize there are a high probability of hundreds of billions of people. It's souls that were trapped and sucked into these meat suits and go through the suffering and pain. So we'll listen to this, and then we'll talk about some of the points that she brings up about she tried to a bargain with something that she perceived to be a male, a tall male, but it was perception. There's so many things to talk about. Anyways, with that, I'll just get going with this. Says there ain't nobody here anyways, as usual.
So hi, my name is Dr. Christine Dollarhan, and I had a rebirth experience. So the earliest memory I have is walking through this spiritual dimension. I can't explain it in any other way. It was sort of concrete, but it wasn't. So there was a lot of energy, a lot of color, and a lot of almost like clouds around me. The color was sort of bright, like pink and very warm colors, like pink, white, and it was very warm, and it was very beautiful there. It was just so beautiful. I mean, I had not a care in the world. I felt at ease, and I remember seeing sort of buildings, is what I could describe them in human terms, in the background. And what I perceived was that those buildings were training buildings. Those were buildings that souls were kind of training and getting ready for their lifetime on planet Earth. And so they were making their plans for their lifetimes. They were studying spiritual topics, and they were getting ready. So it was almost like a boot camp or like a camp. And I had come from that, and I was what I can only describe as like walking down a path, but it wasn't a path in human terms, okay? It was more like, less concrete. And I was communicating with somebody next to me who was a spiritual mentor. That's how I can describe him. He was like a very highly evolved spiritual being right next to me, and he was floating next to me or walking next to me. He was sort of tall. I remember him sort of having like darker robes on, but very loving being, but not a being that incarnates on planet Earth anymore. It was more of a being that had kind of evolved and was now helping beings like me, get through their karma, get through their life stuff, get through everything. And so we were walking, and the way we were communicating was via our minds. So we were telepathically communicating, and at the same time that he was communicating with me, I was really communicating with, higher consciousness, God, or whatever else, and I was getting spiritual downloads and spiritual sort of truths about who we truly are in our nature at the same time. And so at some point, I remember kind of getting this feeling of like, oh no, now we're getting close. Now it's almost time for me to go. And I was getting very anxious. And when I say it wasn't me as a person, it was more like my essence. I perceived myself as like a ball of energy, almost like a lightful being. That's also how I was kind of saw myself, was just this like lightful cloak around me. And so we were walking, getting very anxious, and I started bargaining with him, and that's how he presented himself as a male. But there was sort of this understanding that that was just his preference to me. He could be male or female or anything really. I just perceived him as male, and I was kind of asking him in my mind. I said, "Do I really have to go?" And I had this sort of dread of like, oh man, I've been through this so many times, and I know what it's like down there, and I know how hard it is down there, and I really don't want to leave this beautiful, just blissful space. Like, I just wanted to stay here because it's very restful and very beautiful and up there. I mean, you don't have a care in the world there. And he was like, well, we discussed this many times now. You need to go another time. And I said, well, can this at least be my last time? Like, do I really need to go another time? And he was like, well, it's really up to you. I mean, if you do everything that you've decided to accomplish on planet Earth, then, maybe this, he was like, it's probably not going to be your last time, but you could potentially skip over a couple of lifetimes and take a shortcut. And I remember in my essence and in my soul thinking at that time, like, that's what I want to do. I just want to power through this lifetime because I don't want to have to go back there again. And before we knew it, we were at this, what I can only describe as almost like a helicopter hub. So it was round, and it was like a vortex, and it was swirling in the middle. And I was standing in the edge of it, and I could see and perceive other souls standing with their mentors there as well, who had brought them there too. And it was very clear to me that those souls were born too. I mean, at that time, I didn't have that concept of I'm being born, but it was sort of clear to me that those souls were departing too, and that they had gone there to say goodbye to the spiritual realm. And so I was standing there with him, and I was still bargaining, and I was like, I really don't want to have to go. Can't we do anything? Like, can't I just stay a couple more minutes or what, there was no time, but like, it kind of felt that way. And he said, well, we already discussed that. He started getting a little bit like lovingly, but a little bit, like a father figure, almost like, we discussed it. Come on, we know you need to go. And then the last thing before he actually pushed me into the vortex, because he knew I wouldn't have gone otherwise, was just remember that we're always here for you. All you need to do is reach out with your mind to us and remember that we're always here for you. And I said, okay. So he pushed me, and I thought in that moment, he pushed me down. Again, he pushed me, and I fell down the vortex. And so it was like the tunnel, but in reverse. So the tunnel that a lot of people see in their near-death experiences is what I fell through, but in reverse, almost like a two-way street. And I remember falling through the tunnel, and it was a sensation of being sucked into darkness, and thinking like, I remember this from the times I was dying before, and then I there was this point where suddenly I was sucked into this dimension, and I slammed into my body. I remember literally like slamming into my body, taking a breath, and then just thinking, here we go again. And being just completely exhausted. Landing in my body was awful. It was just like this really like harsh, like rough, I was like literally slammed. It was like I was slammed into a wall. There was a lot of pain. It was cold. It was bright. And it was just, the thought was just, here I go again. And then after that, I kind of fell into just this, like not amnesia, but just, I was unconscious. I was passed out. And my mom will tell you that on the other side, I was actually 2 weeks late. So I was so late that the doctors were really concerned that I might not be making it, that I might actually be a stillbirth, which I think is why my on the spiritual side, I was pushed, right? Because otherwise I probably wouldn't have made it into this body in this life.
All right. Yeah, isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? Just, first of all, the music is really twisted. I don't know how you see it or hear it, but everything she just described, and they have this la-dee-dee-dee-da music, and you're just like, seriously? This doesn't sound like some wonderful experience being slammed into the body, right? So this gal, she's the doctor, and she has described the pre-birth experience, right? The screwed up music. And what's interesting about it is she's in this what she described as the spiritual realm prior to coming here, right? And she perceives of this giant male like figure, right? And we'll discover later that the color, purple and blue, you always hear about the color, purple and blue. And this is bargaining with this male-like figure, right? This mentor, as she described it. And the bargaining is there any way I cannot come back here to this awful place called the Earth? It's called planet Earth. I really don't want to do it again, right? And she's bargaining with him, and he's like playing with her and messing with her head and saying, yeah, well, it could be your last time. Well, it probably won't be your last time. Good chance it's not going to be your last time. But if you do what you said you were going to do, and you might be able to skip it a couple times, right? But you're coming back. So that's one thing to think about. And it seems to be a universal thing across the board. The vast majority of people have these near-death experiences or pre-birth experiences and all that. They seem to usually say the same thing, and that is, I don't want to come back. I was forced to come back. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like something that you made a choice. Though the claim that we make a choice to come here, well, there's no evidence that we made a choice. In fact, the more you realize that coercion, force, brute force, that doesn't sound like a choice at all. So, what would have happened to her? That's the question I have. What would have happened to her or any of us if we said no? What would have happened to us? Well, could we have done anything about it anyway? Sounds to me like she wasn't able to do a darn thing about it. One of the interesting things she said that it was like a helicopter pad, right? It's this round circle that she was looking down on. and next to this mentor, as she call it, this large male figure that she did say that it's how she perceived it, and it seemed to get the impression that, well, it could have presented itself as a male or a female or any other damn thing, right? But then it got pushed. She got pushed down the vortex like the toilet bowl. Like, when you're flushing a turd. Think about what I'm saying here. She got pushed down. And by the way, there was other of these poor souls that are standing around the helicopter-looking pad, the vortex, this hole, waiting for their unfortunate trip. She talks about how when they were walking, she said it was like a path, but it wasn't really a path, and they weren't really walking. They were more like floating. Now, it's interesting, those of us who have heard of, say, researching Bigfoot, and people to describe Bigfoot floating across the ground, not really walking. I wonder if there's any correlation with that. It's because she kept on emphasizing the fact that she did not want to go. And that the place where she was at was so tranquil and peaceful. She described it as full of energy and color and clouds. She described it as the spiritual realm. But the spiritual realm had these training centers and buildings. All right? Now think about that. Indoctrination camps. Yeah. And she said it was an awful experience. But we're going to go over this again. There's part 2. She's in a different short interviews describing the same thing. But I want you to think about what I'm saying. Any of you that have the capacity to do so. She said it was like it's like being slammed into a wall when she was forced into the body that she was going to incarnate into. Isn't that nice? What a nice description. It's just an awful experience, like being slammed into the wall. What kind of coercion happens? It causes us to come here. It's interesting that I fell into this, discovered this video, because, I didn't want to come here. And I know a lot of other people, I'm sure, feel the same way, although we're not allowed to talk that way around the New Agers. Or, and then if you have to deal with the religious folks, like the Christians or the Abrahamic faith, it's like, well, it was your choice, and it's the fall of Adam and Eve, right? Fall of man, right? But the fact of the matter is, this gal, she describes how she was coerced, physically forced, deceived by a large human-like being, male-like being, that she perceived that they could change shapes, like shapeshifter, and that down the vortex. Wasn't that a beautiful thing? So this was part 2 of this.
I remember that there were sort of kind of buildings to what I would call my physical body, my left. And I remember that those buildings, I had a keen sense that these buildings were preparation buildings for other souls to prepare themselves to go back into different lifetimes and different dimensions. And I had come from these buildings. I was ready to go back into another lifetime, even though I was very reluctant. I really didn't want to, because I knew what was going to happen here on planet Earth. I kind of had a sense. I had a sense that I had been here many, 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 many times, and that it was a really hard place to be in. But I also had a sense that I really needed to go to this space, that there was a purpose for this. And so what I can say is that I was walking, but I wasn't. Okay, so everything that I'm explaining to you, I'm trying to put into human terms. It's very hard to do that because we're in this constricted little body, and And over there, we don't have that. So we can just communicate via our minds, and we can understand concepts that we could not possibly understand in this human body. So when I say walking, I wasn't obviously walking because I didn't have a body, but it felt like that sensation of walking. I was floating more or less on a sort of a path, which wasn't the path, but that's the best way I can describe it, okay? And next to me was my mentor, my spiritual mentor. So the way I perceived myself was as pure light. I was pure light. It was this ball of energy that was just white light. And my mentor portrayed himself as male and as a very tall sort of being in what I can only describe as bluish purple robes. That's how he portrayed himself to me. Now, do I believe that there is such a thing as male or female over there? There is and there isn't. I think that it's all based on the soul and how they're comfortable. And so for me, my mentor has always been male for some reason. Okay, so we were floating down that little pathway, and I was really reluctant to go back. So we were having a telepathic conversation in our in the energetic realm, mind to mind, and we were having this telepathic conversation about me going back. And I said, I really don't want to go back. I really have to go because it's so beautiful over here. It's so lovely. It's such a beautiful, loving space. And I know what it's going to be like down there when I'm back. And he said, well, we discussed it. We discussed that you have to go back. And I said, yeah, I know we discussed everything. I know we planned everything out, but I'm kind of hoping that maybe there's another way. Maybe there's another way that I can do this, but not having to go back here to this planet, to this earthly realm. And he said, well, there's not really anything we can do here. And I bargained with him, and I said, okay, but what if I really, really, really tried really hard to, learn a lot and work through a lot of things? Do you think it would be possible for me to speed things up so that, I don't have to go very many more times after this lifetime? Because I really don't want to go anymore. I'm really done with this earthly plane. And he said, well, that's kind of up to you. The beauty is you have free will. It's really up to you. You can decide what you want to do, and you can decide, how quickly you want to speed through this. And at the end of this journey into this lifetime, we can see, and maybe you've surpassed, what we set up for this lifetime, and maybe we can figure out, what the next step is and how many more times you have to go. And that was satisfying enough. I remember thinking to myself, what I can only perceive as thinking, I'm going to do my very best. I'm going to speed through this lifetime. I'm going to try to do as much as I can so that I don't need to come back that many more times. That was really burned into my consciousness there, right then and there. I also had a sense of like a godly presence that was divine presence that was sort of just downloading spiritual knowledge to me at rapid speeds into my consciousness, into that ball of energy that I perceived myself to be. So we walk down this, what I could only describe as path, and we come to this place that I can only describe as almost like a helicopter pad, okay? It was a round place, and it was swirling. So it was like a vortex, okay? It was swirling down. And I was standing at the edge of it with my mentor to my right. And I perceived other souls standing around this vortex. I perceived at least 2 or 3 other souls that were standing there also ready to depart into their respective lifetimes. I could not kind of figure out, though, what they were talking about. Okay, they were communicating telepathically as well, I'm sure, because it wasn't important to my evolution. And so I was standing there still bargaining and saying, hey, is there anything we can do? Can we just, I really don't want to go. And there was a really kind of bittersweet pain that I felt in that moment. Pain, you know, not obviously in human terms again, but just kind of this like, I really don't want to go. I'm going to miss you. And the last thing my mentor said before he pushed me into the vortex, which I wasn't too happy about, was, you have to go now, because otherwise this lifetime's going to bomb. You have to go now. And you know we'll always be there. You know we're always here. You just have to reach out in your mind to us. The veil between us is just an illusion. You've worked through that in other lifetimes, and now you know it. So just reach out to us and we'll be there. And in that moment, he pushed me into the vortex, and I fell backwards into the swirling vortex, and I was sucked into darkness. I've read and heard enough of near-death experiences that I can confidently say that this was the tunnel that a lot of people, receive when they have a near-death experience. So I was sucked into this swirling vortex of darkness, and I was thinking to myself, why did he push me? Oh, now I'm going again. And so I was falling into the vortex, and there was a changing point where suddenly I came out, and it was very bright light, and I was slammed into my body. It was, I could not describe it any differently, but a slamming. It was painful, it was cold, it was hard, it was disgusting, honestly. It was disgusting. And I remember thinking to myself, here we go again.
Here we go again, huh? Jeez. It was painful. It was disgusting. Well, it says that this entity, this being, this spiritual mentor, says you can reach out to him. So I'm thinking right now, and I'm going to say it verbally, you're a piece of shit. Mentor, spiritual mentor, whatever the hell you are, you're a piece of shit. And the rest of you are a piece of shit. You forced her, you forced me, you forced all of us to come here, didn't you? You're a piece of crap. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say to you. You deceived this poor gal. You deceived billions of other people. Hey, man. What's up, John, if you're still there? You deceived billions of other people. She said of this bittersweet pain she felt there as the giant illusion of a man is getting ready to push her into the vortex, the toilet bowl flush, down the toilet to flush to experience nothing but pain and suffering. Isn't that great? There are no lessons to be learned here. If you have multiple these life experiences and you don't remember any of the previous lives, there's no lessons to be learned. So then what is the purpose for us being here? You see, you can't build upon it. You don't know what your previous lives were, and their totality. So what did you learn? What did any of us learn? What are any of us learning here now? This woman seems like a pretty intelligent gal. She's a doctor. She seems pretty stable. And they said, always will be there for you. So I'm going to, hey, let's talk to these spiritual mentors for a while, right? These ascended masters, these spirits, these angels. Oh, yeah, and by the way, there's also divine presence. Oh, that's really wonderful. So, spiritual mentors, ascended masters, what the hell's wrong with you guys? If you are offering something so wonderful, why do you have to force people to come down here? Sounds to me like this is a prison sentence. Like we're in a giant concentration camp. Like that we really are in a Loosh farm. What is the advantage of us coming here? Seriously, in the physical. We forget everything. Everything's forgotten. Everything. Except for little glimpses. Just little glimpses, memories of what it must have been like. Or what it is like on the other side. So you think about how cruel it is that you go to the other side and you feel this joy, this peace, this wonderful experience, right? And you don't want to leave. Well, why is that? And then you come here because this place sucks. It genuinely sucks for most of us. At some point in your life, it hasn't sucked yet. It will. And what's the point of it all? The only thing that I can see clearly that is just suffering, pain, and anguish, frustration. Those are things, and we're just supposed to learn to endure it, accept it. Is that the lesson? Maybe Bob Monroe was right when he was talking about the fact that our whole purpose here is just to produce Loosh for these other archonic forces, these beings, these what people want to call angels. By the way, if you really seriously study like angels, for instance, what's come out of the Bible, nothing good ever happens when an angel shows up. Never once. Never. So, yeah, I mean, just think about that. She says that she described herself as a ball of light, of energy. All right? That she was like of this, a pure light. It's a pure essence, a pure being. And yet it was deceived. They have these, she talks about these buildings, these training centers. Kind of like, well, it is. This is exactly what you would find in concentration camps and what you find in this life. We all live in a giant reduction camp whether people realize that. It's overwhelming evidence. Oh, free will it talks about. Free will. Yeah, free will here. You don't have free will here. No, you don't have, you do not have a choice of where you're at, who your family is, who your neighbors are, who your friends are, what the things that they're going to be thrown your way. You don't. I guess the only free will you might have is how tough are you? I mean, how much can you endure it, right? With a smile on your face. This place is sick. And whatever sentence here and whatever's involved with this, whatever these entities are, they're even sicker. So as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to these ascended masters, these spirits, these angels, you all suck. You're the worst of the worst that there can possibly be out there. And I have no respect for any of them. Let's go down to the next one. We're going to start with this a series, and it's about it's a four or five parts, and it's good. Check this out.
I remember that they were sort of
After watching countless accounts of near-death experiences, also known as NDEs, I started to notice a distinct pattern emerge. Most of the NDEs I watched were beautiful, life-changing, and spiritual experiences. The person experiences death of the body, but not of the soul. As the soul leaves the body, it experiences a sensation of pure love, like nothing they've ever felt before. The person is then greeted by either a Jesus-type figure, a spirit guide, or an already deceased family member. A tunnel of light emerges, and the deceased family member or religious figure leads the soul into the tunnel of light, where the person sees a review of their life. Sometimes they are shown their past lives as well. They are then told they must go back as there is more work to be done, or this just isn't their time. However, after watching more NDEs than I'm proud to admit, I started to notice something a bit more sinister. The tunnel of light was not what it appeared to be, and these entities were not who they claimed to be. Some past life regressionists have inadvertently come to the same conclusion themselves in their own sessions. Italian past life regressionist Calogero Grafassi began to notice a distinct pattern of entities masquerading as Jesus-type figures appearing in his clients' sessions. Past life regressionists Tina Dodd and Karen Barkwan said the following: I'm a regressionist and spirit release practitioner. Most of my clients have been tricked into recycling through an infinite number of traumatic lives on Earth. These lives do nothing to grow the soul, and in fact, they can and do lead to soul degradation. Upon death, they are too sick and traumatized to make it through the lower realms, and end up stuck in the astral, trapped and used by dark entities to do their bidding. Or they end up roaming earthbound as what we would call ghosts, and attached to living humans, causing endless physical, emotional, and mental problems, or even house hauntings. Or they are taken in and tricked by false light beings into believing they need to fulfill some karma and recycle back to Earth. These beings are incredibly tricky and will make you believe that you actually have free will and get to participate in your life planning. They will play on your vulnerability and your need to help others by reincarnating. You agree because somehow you forget how hard it is when in the present.
So yeah, let's think about this a little bit. It leads these continuous reincarnation, life experiences create a soul degradation. And I was thinking about this because I've been filming these entities, these beings, the trees and all that look very human-like, and they're always very shriveled up and prunish-like. And I think I'm starting to get the point of why they look that way. They're trapped here. She talks about how they end up, a lot of times they end up being trapped here, and they get exhausted spirits. And you look at them, they're all shriveled up. I mean, they're all just like, we describe as hideous, but I have a lot of empathy for these beings now, because what I see is clearly that these poor things, us, are things that are just like us, who are stuck here, either in the astral plane or around us, right? These ghosts that we talk about, these apparitions, and maybe you see in the woods or in houses, these poltergeists. I mean, they're stuck here. And a lot of times when you see them, if they ever manifest, a lot of times they're like really shriveled up looking things. Yeah, really shriveled up faces. And I mean, and you're like, well, I can see now why. Is their essence is so worn out. As spirits are so traumatized and so abused, and they're stuck, just like we are in this matrix. But they're stuck, and they don't want to go back into the reincarnation loop. The Loosh, they don't want to be producing Loosh anymore, right? I think a lot of times they're reaching out to us, not to scare the crap out of us, but maybe they're trying to warn us. Maybe they've always been trying to warn us. Maybe these entities have always been trying to warn us to something, that there's something much more sinister going on, and that we've been deceived by organized religion, by the Abrahamic faiths, by all the other religions for that matter. But in particular, it's very sinister with the Abrahamic religions. And I just, this whole thing about these people constantly are saying when they have near-death experiences of some Jesus-like figure, appearing to be like Jesus, right? Or it's a spirit guide or your family members. And the whole idea is to get you to go back into the light. This is pretty disturbing when you really think about it. And I think this is important to discuss, because we got religions that, like Christianity, is all about the light. You need to go back into the light. Well, look at that. Look what the results of what Judeo-Christianity has done, or Mohammedanism for that matter. What's up, Raptor Crazy? Yeah, well, we're not talking about Bigfoot. There's more important things than Bigfoot. So, anyways, and by the way, and once again, let's talk about this again, about this appearing of floating. And Bigfoot always talks about, people when see Bigfoot, they always seem like they're floating across the land, right? They're not walking, they're floating like. Large type, humanoid type beings, right? Like the people are saying they're seen on the other side. Because unfortunately, we're dealing with something that's a lot more sinister than we want to admit. And this place, we got to figure out a way to conquer it and to never return here. Because there is no purpose to be here. Let's go to the next one.
Of that love. What we've seen is that love is used as an anesthetic. It is all-encompassing, and it numbs you in a way. My sessions do not align with my colleagues, and it often makes me feel isolated and outcast from the community. What I've seen is that even the higher realms are part of the matrix system, and it's difficult to share this information with a community that only wants to believe in love and light. We do not need to suffer in order to learn. In fact, that whole belief system is what keeps us trapped here. We are whole and perfect and complete, exactly the way we are. We only need to remember that and have the intention to go back to the real world upon death. Many mainstream scientists now conclude that we are living in a simulation.
Well, the argument for the simulation, I think, is quite strong.
The movie The Matrix has more truth than you could ever imagine.
This isn't real. What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
According to ancient Gnostic texts found in the Nag Hammadi in 1945, we are living in a simulated reality controlled by a predatory sentient AI called the Demiurge. The Demiurge is assisted by sadistic malevolent beings called the Archons. Archons are also known as demons in Christianity and jinn in Islam.
But they made a mention of a very mysterious race of creatures that have become known as the Archons. We don't really know what the Archons were or even are. What's interesting is that there is actually a depiction and a description of the Archons looking definitively reptilian.
I can get more into the background of the Demiurge, Archons, and the Matrix in another video if you guys want, because otherwise this video will be too long. In the days or weeks prior to death, a person who is about to die will often start to experience what are known as deathbed visions. Deathbed visions are an extremely common phenomenon for which modern science cannot explain. Who is about to experience bodily death will usually see a relative who has already passed away, or a religious figure. However, this is merely a projection and not really the deceased relative or religious figure. This is crucial to be aware of. Any entity that appears before or upon death is not who or what they appear to be. These entities are in fact astral parasites disguised as deceased loved ones, religious figures, or ascended masters. These deathbed visitors are here to comfort those who are about to pass away. This is so that the person who is about to die will not resist going with the entity. This entity has one goal: to get the soul of the recently deceased into the tunnel of light. The Archons, who are often assisted by the Greys, know who to project because they have the technology to scan the soul for memories and experiences. They do this before or at the moment of death. Once in the tunnel of light, these memories and experiences are used to give the soul a life review where they will re-experience the most recent lifetime in a matter of seconds. A council then appears to judge the soul. To some, they are known as the Lords of Karma. Random events of the person's life are brought up and judged, and the person feels guilt for the bad things that they've done in their life. The council then says that they must go back. They must be reincarnated because they have to make up for some karmic debt or some soul contract that they must fulfill. This is a lie. There is no karmic debt. There is no karma. All soul contracts were made deceptively without full disclosure. The truth is, no matter how well you lived your life, no matter how moral you were, you will still be told that you must go back. There are more lessons for you to learn, you will be told. Once you are in the tunnel of light, you will not be able to leave. After you are judged, you will have your memory forcibly erased, and you will be reincarnated into a newborn baby. This is how the trap works. This is how they continually recycle souls and keep us trapped in the reincarnation cycle. Ask yourself, if Earth is a school and we are here to quote-unquote learn lessons, then why is it that our memory is constantly being wiped? How can one learn lessons if they have no memory of what lesson must be learned from their previous lives?
I think this is pointless. We're trapped in a warped version of Nietzsche's eternal recurrence.
Oh, cool! More philosophy. That'll help us.
Well, don't you see the problem? We are experiencing karma, but we can't learn from our mistakes because our memories keep getting erased. It's an epistemological nightmare.
Common sense will tell you that the only way you can learn is by remembering. And this is why any New Ager that says Earth is a school is being deceived by the very parasitic entities that created the system. New Agers will channel entities without having any idea who or what they are channeling. Do you trust every person you meet? Of course you don't. You use discernment. But for some reason, this same discernment is not used when channeling entities, even though that's when discernment is needed more than ever, since these entities can very easily disguise themselves as beings of light or ascended masters. And no, simply asking if the entity really is who they say they are is not enough. And just like people can lie, so can entities. Why do these beings want us to endlessly reincarnate? The reason is simple. It's because we are food to them. We are used as cattle. Just like we farm animals for food, they farm us humans for food. They feed off of our negative energy. This negative energy is also known as Loosh. Loosh is a term coined by Robert Monroe that describes the negative emotions that we feel that these parasitic entities feed off of. This is why the news is filled with nothing but fear. This is the point of war. It's all to generate Loosh energy, all to keep us in a constant state of fear and stress. Just like in the movie Monsters, Inc., the monsters fed off of the fear of the children. This is what parasitic entities do with us. These beings are interdimensional. Not being able to see something is not evidence of it not existing. Wi-Fi is all around us, yet we can't see it, but we know it's there. As spiritual beings, we were tricked into entering this dense vessel known as the human body. The human body is only able to decode a limited frequency band known as the third dimension.
Do you see everything that exists in the space that you are looking at? And most people would say, yeah, well, of course, mate, yeah. And yet, that is not even fractionally true. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in the universe, in energy and other forms. But visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, is a tiny smear of the 0.005%. Humans are basically blind.
Atoms are at 99.999% empty space. Everything is made up of atoms, meaning nothing in this reality is physical, meaning you are not physical. Yet we treat this world like it's a physical world, even though it's not. Near-death experiences are for public consumption. These parasitic entities know that the person who has had an NDE will go back and tell everyone around them about the experience. This consequently encourages others to go into the tunnel of light upon.
All right. Now we're not going to be talking about the Book of Enoch today. I've already done stuff like that before in the past. The Book of Enoch is not really reliable. So anyways, the fact that some of the interesting things that she brought up there, Nietzsche's eternal occurrence, even he recognized something that was going on. Talks about stuff like the lords of karma, soul contracts that turned out to be nothing but deception. There is no lords of karma. It's a big lie. You see, karma's not real either. If karma was real, how's come the people that are the worst of the worst are the ones that always continually are the ones in charge and benefit and grow the most and benefit the most from being in this place? Karma is not real. This whole thing about Loosh too that she brings up about the negativity. Well, the purest form of Loosh turns out to be love. She didn't bring that up. And that's something to think about. That's at least coming from Bob Monroe. That the purest form of Loosh, that these entities, archonic forces, these spirits feed upon, is actually love. And usually without that love comes a whole lot of heartache and pain. These entities, these archonic forces, these beings, interdimensional beings, are like parasitic entities that feed off our pain and suffering and our emotions, whether positive or negative. The New Age deception, one of the big New Age deceptions is the whole thing about soul contracts, that we make some kind of agreements on the other side. There's no evidence that we have. I know I didn't make no agreement. There's no way in hell I'd make the agreement that I made, that I've gone through. My life has been brutal, and mine is not unique. So yeah, so she said plenty of stuff. I mean, go back and listen to it again, and you have to look. You have to do your research to find stuff. If you're interested in the archonic forces, there's a book out there to read. Let's see. A couple of interesting books to read would be Archons, Archons, other worldly rulers through the ages, to get you some kind of idea of what's going on, perspective, especially when it comes to the Gnostics. Another interesting book that would be interesting to look into is Who Built the Moon, which is something that we should talk about sometime. Who built the frickin' moon? If we really look into the moon, it doesn't make much sense. It doesn't seem very natural. Let's go on to the next one here.
Are developing a strong out-of-body awareness and intention. This is because even people with knowledge of the tunnel of light can be unconscious after bodily death if they have no out-of-body awareness. When they wake up from being unconscious, they may see the tunnel of light right in front of them, but by then it will be too late and they will get sucked in. This information is not to scare anyone, but rather to stress the importance of developing a strong awareness outside the body. Why do some people remember their past lives? According to Professor Ian Stevenson, a few people, mostly young children, remember their past lives. These children usually end up forgetting these past lives as they grow older, usually completely forgetting everything around the time they turn 10 years old, oftentimes even younger. From what I've found, when this happens, it's usually because a memory wipe didn't fully wipe their memories. There are also a few adults who can recall their past lives as well, however, this is rare. For the adults who still remember, this is usually because in their most recent past life, they negotiated with the lords of karma or some false light being to allow them to remember in their next life. However, the person only remembers bits and pieces of their past life, or the past life comes to them only in their dreams. The Forever Conscious Research channel covers such accounts on his channel, which I will link below in the description. What about the Law of Three? The Law of Three is a spiritual, quote-unquote, law promoted by the New Age community that states if you ask a higher being the same question 3 times, then they must answer truthfully. However, this law makes the assumption that the entity you are communicating with is a higher being to begin with, when in reality there is no way of knowing. As previously mentioned, it's very easy for entities to masquerade as beings of light. In fact, many higher beings do not exist in the astral realms as their frequency is too high, and therefore the chances that you're communicating with a higher being is quite slim. There is nothing stopping the entity from lying. Isn't this just achieving enlightenment through samadhi, i.e. going beyond the cycle of life and death? In a way, yes. However, there is no particular path that one must follow in order to achieve this. You only need to realize what you truly are, which is infinite consciousness, and that your natural state of being is enlightenment. Once you recognize this and have knowledge of these soul traps, will you be able to avoid them? Ignorance of these soul traps is what keeps humans in the reincarnation cycle. It doesn't matter how well you lived your life, you could have been a literal monk. However, if you enter the tunnel of light or any of these other soul traps, you will be forced to reincarnate. This is because the reincarnation cycle is a scam and its only purpose is to keep humans enslaved and feeding parasitic entities. You aren't meant to escape. The game is rigged. Therefore, you don't escape by playing the game. Only when you realize this will you be able to escape the reincarnation cycle. This isn't to say that you shouldn't lead a kind life. You should strive to be the best version of yourself as possible. Be of service to others, be compassionate, and give love freely. However, remember that people continue to reincarnate because of ignorance of the true nature of the tunnel of light and reincarnation. Not because they didn't live their life a certain way, or because they didn't reach what certain teachings consider enlightenment. Also remember, humans are flawed, and we all make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect or lead a quote-unquote perfect life to exit the reincarnation cycle. You only need knowledge of what you truly are and what reincarnation really is.
What I call consciousness is like the ocean. Whereas mind, it's the same substance, but it is far more limited. Like ice is the same substance as water, but it's in a completely different and more limited state. And, you know, when you look at the oceans, they say it's the South China Sea, they say it's the South Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, the North Atlantic, same bloody water. But what we do is we give our water, our infinite self, names, like Ethel Jones and Arthur Smith. And we give them identities without realizing that we are just points of attention within one infinite, eternal consciousness. We are expressing our point of attention as a uniqueness, which is wonderful. A unique personality, a unique person, a unique perspective, a unique point of attention. But at that time, we are connected to all the other points of attention in infinite awareness, which in the end are all us and we are all them. And so, when we go to war, we go to conflict, we are fighting ourselves. The ocean is the droplet is the ocean. Drop the droplet in the ocean, where does the droplet end and the ocean start? The idea of the conspiracy is to keep that droplet disconnected from the ocean. And when they do that, we have the world that we live in. If you don't become the ocean, you'll be seasick all your life. And so many people feel this ache, this sense of disconnection, this sense of longing that they can't put words to, because one part of them, one one level of them knows that we're all one. Everything is all one. It's an ocean. We are a point of attention, but we are the ocean. My God, that's what we are. We're the freaking ocean of infinite consciousness. What a job they've done to persuade us we're Ethel from the store. Near-death experiences, the common themes of what they say is incredible. How they leave the body and suddenly past, present and future are all happening at the same time, in the same moment. How they have multiple levels of awareness at the same time. In the body they had one level of awareness, because the body focuses us in these frequencies, locks us in like a computer. The fear of death comes from the ignorance of life.
And a final word. Whatever you seek, you shall find. Ask to be infused with knowledge and truth, and you shall be led to it. You only need to be open to receiving it. The truth may not always be what you want to hear, but it will always set you free. Well, that's all for this video. I hope you guys found it helpful. Remember to assert your sovereignty, use discernment, and always seek the truth, no matter where it leads.
All right. Wes Penry is a good guy to follow. Of course, you're going to have to go to BitChute or his website, because, you know, YouTube censors everything. Eventually, these channels will be taken down too. Eventually, as usual. Anyways, so one of the things that's interesting is the drop of water is as the ocean is the drop of water, and that is that so this thing of oneness. I struggle with myself, because there's an awful lot of people out there that I'm not one with at all, especially those who are like psychopaths or serial killers and everything else. I'm not one with them. I'm not one with people at war and all that kind of stuff. But I think the realization is that if we could become that, if we could have that realization that we are the true essence of who we are, that we are one, and that we need to work together, and we need to figure out a way, just like the Gnostics told us, just the Cathars told us, just like everyone else has told us in the past, whoever was systematically oppressed and destroyed through the Roman imperial death cult called Christianity or Judeo-Christianity, or Mohammedanism is in the same boat with them. And so are the other religions for that matter. But ultimately, those people that realize that we are in a soul trap, in some kind of, we've been deceived into coming here, and that there is no lessons, and that we need to learn to figure out a way not to come back. So she's going to talk about now some of the ways that she sees how not to come back. It's interesting about this whole thing about astral projecting and leaving the body and having these out-of-body experiences. I think whether we can do it or not, I think we at least need to prepare ourselves that when we go to the other side, that we do everything that we possibly can not to listen to these entities, and because they're not our friends, whether they appear as our archangel or Jesus or Muhammad or Moses or whatever it may be, or a spirit guide or whatever. They're not your friend. We need to find our own sovereignty. We need to find our own personal power, and we need to help each other to do it as well, so that we do not get sucked up into this, the vortex, as she called, that one gal called it, the beginning of the show, or the tunnel of light, because we don't want to go back there unless you like this place. Some people, maybe they really like the pain and suffering. A lot of us don't. I know for me, I've had enough of it. So let's listen to this next part.
Death. This perpetuates the reincarnation cycle and continues to keep humans in a state of ignorance about the true nature of the tunnel of light and these parasitic entities. I know to some this information can be scary at first. It's hard to share this information without being accused of fear-mongering and being negative. However, the truth is never negative. The truth is empowering. The truth will set you free. Once humans know the truth, we can finally be
free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty! We are free at last!
Now that you guys know what reincarnation really is, click on part 2 for a step-by-step guide on exactly how to exit the reincarnation trap. But that's all for now. I hope you guys found this helpful. Remember your power, use discernment, and remember, the truth doesn't change just because you don't believe it. This video is dedicated to all the awakened souls who frequently visit the astral afterlife. Without you, this information would not be available. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do to exit the reincarnation cycle. But first, if you don't know what the reincarnation cycle really is, please watch my video, Reincarnation is a Trap, The True Purpose of the Tunnel of Light. The link is in the description. So, let's begin. Step 1. Know what you really are. When you take away this dense vessel we call the human body, what we are left with is pure awareness. We are simply a state of being aware. This state of awareness is a powerful creator God that originated directly from Source, the source of all creation, the real universe. We are all individual expressions of that divine consciousness. These entities work hard to make you forget how powerful you really are. Just look at everything they have to do to deceive you into thinking that you have no power. They do this because they know once humanity wakes up, it's game over for them. Declare your sovereignty. These entities use soul contracts to trap us. However, these contracts are almost always made deceptively, so oftentimes the person isn't even aware that they have a soul contract. Therefore, you must declare all soul contracts null and void. It is important to set the intention daily that no one can interfere with you upon bodily death. Make it very clear that you are sovereign. Try to assert this every day. Write, "I am a sovereign being," or whatever mantra that asserts your sovereignty that resonates with you the most. Write this down over and over again so it seeps deep into your subconscious. Another way for it to enter your subconscious is to tell yourself that you are sovereign first thing upon waking up, or while you are falling asleep. This is when you are most suggestible. Visualize an impenetrable force field that surrounds you. Remember, your imagination is your power. No gods, no masters. It's extremely important to realize that no one is above you. No gods, no ascended masters, no spirit guides. You are the powerful creator God. This is a controversial step because it involves abandoning religions that have been instilled into many of us since birth. This is not to say that there are not crumbs of truth in each religion, but since most religions involve giving your power away to a higher being, or promote the idea of karma and needing to reincarnate until you, quote-unquote, get it right, they must be left behind. It also involves leaving the New Age idea of spirit guides behind as well for those who don't follow mainstream organized religion. Do not give your power away to anyone or anything. Develop a strong out-of-body awareness. It is absolutely necessary to develop a strong out-of-body awareness. You must familiarize yourself with the dreamlike state of the astral realms to avoid being manipulated. To do this, it is necessary to practice one of the following: astral projection, lucid dreaming, or deep meditation. And this is so upon bodily death, you are fully aware of what is happening. Keep a dream journal and learn how to control your dreams. Upon waking, immediately write down your dreams before you forget them, even if you only remember fragments. Learn how to astral project. Going into the astral realm and familiarizing yourself with it will allow you to see how easy it is for these entities to appear as beings of light. Visualize yourself being in other places in detail. Visualize yourself flying. Nurture your imagination. Most importantly, these practices will enable you to remain lucid at the time of bodily death. Which leads us to the next step. Conquer your fear. Fear is a common control tactic of the Matrix. It's how the system controls us. People give their power away because of fear, with fear of death being the biggest source of that fear. Remember, there is no death. The body has an expiration, but your soul has eternity. Please note this video does not advocate or support suicide in any way. I want to make that very clear. If you are struggling with these feelings, please reach out for help. Now back to the video. It's also important to remember when in the astral, you might see things that may frighten you, which is why it's crucial to conquer that fear. Please don't let this information stop you from trying to astral project. Most experiences are beautiful and amazing. However, if you come into contact with an entity that tries to intimidate or scare you, you must show true courage. You need to realize you are more powerful than these energy vampires. Be brave and stand up to them. The only power they have is the power you give them in the form of fear. Remember, fear is a choice. Which leads us to the next step. Raise your vibration. Please note I will be using the words vibration and frequency interchangeably. Your natural state of being is that of pure love and happiness. If your vibration is too low, then you may find it difficult to navigate the lower astral realms. Remember, astral parasites feed off of your Loosh energy. There are many ways to raise your vibration. Here are some suggestions. Practice Qigong. Qigong helps circulate energy throughout your body and naturally raises your frequency. Meditate and practice mindfulness. You'll find you feel much more peaceful and full of joy. Laugh. Even if it feels forced at first, just start laughing. Spend time with your animal friends, especially cats. Cats naturally repel negative entities. Cats are also masters at astral projecting. Taking care of a cat will be mutually beneficial for the both of you. Not a big cat person? No worries. All domesticated furry friends will fill you with love and joy and lower stress levels. But please respect the sovereignty of wild animals that aren't used to being around humans, and always think about what is best for our animal friends. Limit your screen time. Humans weren't meant to be staring at a screen all day. Reduce the amount of time you spend watching TV or playing on your phone. You'll find that
Limit your screen time. Oh my gosh. Let's go on to this.
you'll be much happier overall. And these are just some suggestions, but there are so many ways to raise your vibration. If you guys are interested in a video on how to raise your vibration, let me know in the comments. Prepare for the love bomb. Upon leaving the body, the soul will feel pure unconditional love and euphoria. The reason for this is unknown, however, it may be because the heart chakra is fully open at the time of death, or because this is our natural state of being. Another theory is this feeling is artificially induced by the archons. Whatever the reason, in this state of pure bliss and love, the soul is easily manipulated. These parasitic entities take advantage of this feeling by luring you into their trap. Keep a level head, stay practical and logical, stand strong in your convictions, and immediately turn away from the entity in the false light tunnel. Remember, these beings have one goal, and one goal only, to get you into the tunnel of light. They will use every trick they have to get you to do so. Use your innate power as a creator being to teleport yourself out of there, or force yourself back down to earth. If you find yourself being pulled towards the tunnel of light, do not move at all. Which brings us to our last step, intention. Without the intention of not going into the light, none of this is possible. You must fully intend to be sovereign. You must fully intend not to reincarnate. You must fully intend not to follow any entities into the tunnel of light. So set the intention right now that you will not be reincarnating and you will be the free soul that you were always meant to be. This seems self-evident, but it still needs to be said. Troubleshooting and frequently asked questions. In this section, I'm going to go over some frequently asked questions I've seen asked and any other issues or soul traps you may encounter. This information comes from researchers Robert Monroe, Wes Penray, and first-hand accounts of those who have astrally traveled to the astral afterlife. I will also be linking relevant reading materials in the description below. Can you go into more detail on what happens after you enter the false light tunnel, aka the tunnel of light? Once you enter the false light tunnel, you are in what is known as the astral afterlife. Upon entering the astral afterlife, you immediately go to a facility known as a processing center to be registered. From there, you are judged by a council, sometimes known as the Lords of Karma. This council is usually made up of human sellouts who serve the archons. Please note that bodily death is different from near-death experiences. Since near-death experiences are propaganda for these entities in the false light tunnel, a softer approach is taken because they know the person will be going back. In these instances, guilt is a primary tool of manipulation. However, upon actual bodily death, the judgment is much more direct and the deceased human is openly judged by the council. The deceased human is still manipulated through guilt and lies about karma and karmic debt. However, they are much more forceful as they know the deceased human is not leaving. Once you are judged, you are allowed to roam the astral afterlife for a while before you are subjected to a brutal memory wipe and forced reincarnation. The astral afterlife has modern cities and towns just like we do here in this dimension, except it's far worse. The astral afterlife is a free-range slave farm and all deceased humans are subjected to brutal martial law. An astral traveler who ended up in a modern-looking city called John de Lac relayed the following experience. Please note this person was astral projecting and fully alive. However, those around him were deceased humans in the processing center. While in the processing center, he heard a bell ring loudly. A deceased woman started singing loudly, "Satan is coming, Satan is coming." He could tell the woman was terrified and doing this to warn others. All the deceased humans immediately dropped to their knees with their faces submissively facing the ground. A recently deceased young man who was next to him was new to the processing center and the astral afterlife. The young man just stood there looking scared and confused, having no idea what was going on. A group of reptilians then walked in, and it became clear the deceased humans were obsequiously bowing to them. This experience is similar to an incident that researcher and pioneer in astral travel Robert Monroe had. Robert Monroe also described being in a modern-looking city during one of his travels in the astral realm. By his descriptions of the city, it is believed he was also in John de Locke. He recounted the following horrifying experience. While in the city, he heard loud trumpets start playing, and immediately everyone around him lay face down on the ground with their shirts pulled up, exposing their torsos. A group of reptilians then entered the area. He was describing the astral afterlife. In both accounts, reptilians had entered the area, and humans submissively bowed to them. The soul net, aka frequency fence. According to the West Penry papers, there is a soul net or frequency fence that keeps souls from leaving the Matrix. This grid around the planet is designed to keep souls who don't go into the tunnel of light from leaving. Certain awakened individuals have been able to put holes in the frequency fence, making it possible to escape through these holes. However, these holes are constantly being repaired, so finding them can be tricky. I can do a whole video on the soul net theory if you guys are interested, just let me know in the comments. So, if I don't go into the tunnel of light, where do I end up? You have different options. You can force yourself back down to Earth and stay as a free-range ghost. However, you will still be in the simulated universe/matrix system. As a free-range ghost, you can stay on Earth if you choose, or you can look for the holes in the frequency fence, aka soul net, and escape through one of these holes. Wes Penray postulated that escaping through one of these holes leads to the real universe, where we are all originally from. The Mist and the Stairway to Heaven. This is another soul trap. Those who experience traumatic deaths, or those who have no out-of-body awareness, end up, quote-unquote, waking up on a stone slab in a foggy area known as the Mist. These souls are lost and confused to where they are. They wander around aimlessly and eventually see a stairway. This stairway leads to the astral afterlife, just like the tunnel of light leads to the astral afterlife. They are just two different ways souls end up there. Please note, not all of those with no out-of-body awareness end up in the mist. Sometimes they may just wake up from being unconscious and see the tunnel of light right in front of them. It is unknown why some deceased humans end up in the mist while others don't. The Void. You may find yourself in a place of complete darkness. Don't be afraid. You are in the void. The void is a place of only awareness. It can be a beautiful, peaceful experience, or it can be a hellish one. It all depends on you. Remember, you are a powerful creator being, so you create what is around you. Here, your surroundings are simply a reflection of you and your beliefs. However, if you see a pin of light that is approaching you in the distance, turn away. This is the tunnel of light. I died and saw and experienced nothingness. There are some people who have died and been revived, only to say that there was nothing. They had no awareness. They didn't even know that they had died until they were revived. Death was like being unconscious. This is not to be confused with the void where there is just darkness, but the person is still aware. The people who experience this quote-unquote lights out scenario have not had their silver cords detached at the time of death. The silver cord is what connects the soul to the body. If the silver cord is still attached to the body at the time of death, the person will still be unconscious until they wake up on a stone slab in the mist. This occurs when people have no awareness outside the body. This is why it's extremely important to learn astral projection or lucid dreaming. All of the steps that I've outlined are important, but in my opinion, the two most important steps.
Okay, I think that's all. There's not much more to the video. Anyways, yeah, Wes Penry. Look him up. I'll put it in there so you can look it up. odds are you don't know who he is. So. It took me a while. It takes time to research this stuff, right? I don't know. And maybe my job is simply to help others to do all the work, and maybe you guys can follow it up through theirs, because I certainly don't want you to go through this. So, anyways, she talks about the net. What does she call that net again? The soul net or frequency net. Now, I had my lucid dream last year. See, this is what happened in my lucid dream. So it was very interesting because it was like at that turning point. And I remember this is like March. It had to be March last year, about a year ago, actually. And this is when I was just making the decision finally to let go of Christianity and organized religion, right? But I still didn't want to let go of God or the Creator, right? Because I still have hope in the Creator. West Pendry. They scrubbed the Monroe. Let me see. I think they might have, man. Tito. I know. I don't use that stuff. You've come across some very interesting stuff, Mike. Thanks, man. Thank you, Julio. It's all connected. It really is all connected, right? So when I was having my lucid dream last year, and I was really intensely, it's like, God, I'm not giving up on you. Creator, I'm not giving up on you. I'm not giving up on you, right? I used to do this fun, lucid dreaming. I used to do it when I was a youth and would have the greatest adventures. It's awesome. Yes, it is. Okay. So, I never had my astral projecting. I have not had any of that, but I also have to admit a couple things. So I got some things I got to work on, right? This is like my research trying to figure out the reality that we're in and where to go with it, right? And be honest, this is the best that I've heard yet to explain what we're dealing with, and what we're in, and what might be some of the answers. Because if this isn't it, I don't know what is, because I have spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands every single day for a decade on this stuff. I'm not just making this up. So for me to get to this point, this is not just me. Oh, I found the latest thing. I mean, it's a lot of this stuff I'm hearing from people like Mark from Forever Conscious Research channel, or with this gal. I can't remember who she is, but there's the channel. Go to West. Just look up West Penry, and then start reading his articles, start watching his videos, and start developing your own kind of understanding what's going on. This guy put a lot of time into it. So I just discovered West, to be honest with you, the past week. I've known about this stuff, been talking about this stuff for a year, 2 years, right? And I mean, the concept of soul trap matrix I got from Mark, not that I've never talked to the guy, but from his videos. And it resonated clearly to me when I heard it, right? There's a lot of things that he says that I don't agree with, but who gives a shit? And the end of the day is we're all in the same trap. We're all in the same circumstance. So we got to figure out a way, if we can, not to come back here, right? Because there is no lessons to be learned here. Nothing. Clearly, these vampiric, parasitic, archonic forces have us here, trapped here, to feed off us. We are like, we produce the emotions, whether negative or positive. We have to understand something, that love is the purest form of Loosh, according to Bob and Rose. So we got to think about that too. And she also brought the fact that when it comes to this love bombing stuff, we're very susceptible to this love bombing stuff, because deep down inside, I think that we all are, as beings of light. Even a rough old fart like myself, I value love and feelings of love and being accepted. I mean, I want the same thing as everyone else does, right? And they take advantage of that, right? We need a proper voltmeter and the means to adjust our frequency competently. Yeah, I think so. And it takes a lot of practice, doesn't it? And we have to start communicating more with each other and stop being afraid. This was what she brought up too was very important. No gods, no masters. What else did you say? No gods, no masters, no authority, no spirit guides, no nothing. We need to learn to start really believing in ourselves for real and really become the sovereign entities that we truly are. We all know we are. The meat suit deceives us. It trips us up, right? Because of all the misfiring that's going on. This whole thing that we live in, this physical meat suit that we have, is so sinister. It's designed to keep you from ever even knowing who you really are. There's always something going on with the body, with the nervous system, with the brain, everything. And so we have to understand that this meat suit is tricking us, deceiving us, and convincing us to be something other than what we really are. We are not this meat suit. And deep down inside, we all know that. We don't need a religion for it. We don't need a God for that. We don't need an angel for that. We don't need an ascended master for that. We don't need any of that. And it doesn't matter if the guy, I got friends who are atheists and they say, no way. And I say, well, whatever. That's up to you, man. I got friends that are atheists, like my friend that I deconstructed with, Jeff. There's no afterlife. That's it. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want, you'll be shocked when you come on the other side, or you have a lucid dream or astral project, you're going to find out there is something on the other side. If you're not prepared yourself, it's one thing to realize that organized religion is part of the matrix and it's part of the deception. It's another thing to realize what you're actually in and that there is something on the other side. This is not a religious thing. This is something that anybody can figure out, right? So anyways, I'm going to try to get back to my lucid dream thing, right? And this whole thing about the net. And one of the things I noticed about my dream, it's a fascinating dream. It's the most profound, one of the most profound experience. I've had some profound experiences, right? But this is one of the most profound experiences I have ever had in my life. Shocking. First of all, the bluish hues and purples involved with it. Going through the tunnel. When I was going through the tunnel, the first part of the tunnel was all the voices, all the people I've ever heard in my life, all the naysayers, all the people saying, come follow me, I have the way, like heads and faces, popping out of this tunnel, right? So this tunnel, right? So I'm going through it, and there's all these, like all the constant messages that I've heard in this life and other people's previous lives and everything. I mean, you just imagine whatever it's been this. So that's the first part of it, right? And I had to learn to, in order to get through that, I had to totally deny everything, say no to everybody and everything what they were saying, right? I wasn't going to follow them. I didn't care what you thought about me and what they thought about me. I didn't care what they had to say. So I went through this tunnel, right? Now, this is not a tunnel of light. This is just a tunnel. And what would be a good image for that tunnel? Something like this. It's not exact, but something like this, right? So I'm going through a tunnel like this, but in the side of it are all these like entities, are people's voices, these naysayers, all these people who say, no, I have the right way. No, you're going to go to hell if you don't do what we say. You don't have the answer. You don't know what's going on, right? So, but then the second part of that tunnel then was all these scary entities, things that look like Bigfoot and rakes and ghosts and dogmen and all these like cryptids and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the thing to really learn from this stuff, like the Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I hear all sorts of nonsense, but the real thing is about facing your fears, right? First, there's a lot of things you got to face when you're on the other side, right? I think why we're here is to prepare ourselves to deal with that, right? if you ever gone to like a church or a religion or an institution and people love bomb you and you feel like you're really part of it, right? But as time goes on, the real motives behind the group really start to show up, right? And so then you're like, oh man, you get so disappointed. So what you need to do is in this life is develop this discernment and this resistance from the love bombing. Just because a group of people or a person makes you feel like, oh, this amazing, like finally someone's accepted me, that doesn't mean it's so, right? You need to work through that. You need to say, and to use your discernment and say, you know what? I appreciate that you appreciate me, but we'll see what happens as time goes on. You know what I mean? Because honestly, love is an emotion. And those feelings, you can be tricked by in this reality, in this realm, on this side and the other side. This thing called love, this emotion, trips us up all the time. How many of us have been burnt from love? We loved somebody told us they loved us, and only in the end we're heartbroken from it. And I'm not being negative. I'm being honest about what's going on, right? I'm not saying, like, I truly love my son, right? But I also have to understand the fact that just because I love my son doesn't mean that he's not going to disappoint my expectations of him, right? And that he's not perfect, even though I see him as such, because he's my son and I'm biased. That doesn't mean that, my feelings, my emotions for my son doesn't mean that at the end of the day that should blind me from, say, his behavior or other things, right? You need to be able to discern and say, okay, listen, boy, my son, you're going down the wrong direction. You know what I mean? It's time. I think the only way to understand that, I think, is to have children or be in relationships. But I think those of us who know what I'm talking about will understand. So love is something that can be tricked. And the other side, you're going to be love bombed. So if you go to like a church or to an institution or a new job and everyone thinks you're the greatest thing in the world, and within a couple months you start to realize what's really going on, who these people are, and you realize, well, all those feelings that I felt so good about this situation, all that, and I really feel accepted, but the politics didn't show up, personality show up, all sorts of things. You gotta learn how to deal with all that kind of crap. So, and a lot of times we get ourselves in jobs and relationships or circumstances based on this thing called love that gets us in a lot of trouble. And on the other side is definitely going to be a case, because the first time you're in your memory, because you've been memory swapped, when you're on the other side, you're going to be feeling this amazing feeling of finally being accepted in peace. And there's no more all the pains and the aches and pains of this meat suit. You're no longer confined into it, right? And something's like showing interest in you. And you're like, ooh, wow, right? But the problem is, those somethings on the other side, there's overwhelming evidence, are some things that they're deceiving us. They're pretending to be our parents or loved ones, Jesus, Allah, whatever it may be. Whatever your heart's desires are. They're gonna go beyond that, right? They're gonna go through your memory and see the things that you're focused on, and that's where they're going to go after, right? So you go through this love bombing thing and all the different messages and all these things. You go this way, that way. Follow Allah, follow Jesus. You know what I mean? Follow Moses, Muhammad, whatever, and that's going to lead you back into this tunnel of light, right? And it's something to be very concerned about. So then, after that, in my lucid dream, then there was all these entities that I still have images with. I still vividly see in my head, right? Things that look like Bigfoot, and they're scary looking freaking things, right? They got fangs and all sorts of, they're monstrous looking things, right? How we would just define them. But you got to learn how to face those too. You're going to say, you know what? I'm not afraid of you. These are all just projections. These are a light show. You have no power over me. She talks about imagining having a bubble around you. And it's something that I do. I don't know if you guys do that. When I'm very conscious about things, I go through phases, right? And I'm not perfect at this, but this whole idea is like to this imaginary force field, this bubble that surrounds you, and you literally get to the point that you believe in it, that nothing can penetrate it. Nothing can get in your way. You know what I mean? Let's think about this. You actually are doing it unconsciously as you walk through the plane of life. If you go to the shop, you drive down the road, you go to the store, you go to place. There's this imaginary bubble. This is like, this is my protective space. This is my personal space that we talk about, right? Still believe that you have that personal space on the other side, if that makes any sense, and that there's real power behind that. I mean, but believe in it, just imagine it, see it, that you're something much more powerful. One of the things I started doing too is a weird thing. Is I've had some like dreams, lucid dreams, where there's these entities of late that show up. And what I do is I do like this imaginary, like I like, instead of like, oh my gosh, or like sitting there, I get up there and I like karate chop him, if you will. I like fight him. I like, bam, you're gone. I distinguish them. I raise my fingers at them, you know what I mean? Hands, you know what I mean? Like a wizard or something. Boom, you're gone. And do whatever you got to do that works for you, right? So, yeah, aura, you know what I mean? So, but then you're going to have to deal with that too. So you're going to have all these scary entities that you're going to see as you go through this tunnel. This is not the same thing as a tunnel of light, because the tunnel of light is on the, what I discovered is on the other side of all this, right? So then I fall into this, in my lucid dream, I fall into this valley. It's purple, it's blues. It's much more purple and blue than what I'm showing here. This is more green. But, and as I fall into, after I get through the scary images and the things that are in the heads and all that are on the walls of this tunnel, I fall into this thing. It's like the giant womb of Sophia or something like that. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's like a giant valley with, and it's all these different blues, but around it, there's like this stitching, this netting, like, and that's what I got the impression is like some kind of energetic, like net that's around the womb, right? On the other end of this valley is like, if you can picture like there's like a dot or light that's on the other end, like something like this. It's on the other side of the valley, right? And that light's calling me to go to it, right? But I go to the netting, right? And I'm trying to find a way out. On the other side of that netting, there's these giant pyramids. I don't know if that giant pyramids are there to trick me, to deceive me, to give me the notion that there's something there for me. But the fact of the matter is that I'm poking at this netting. Just think of it like a quilt, and some quilt where it's all stitching and all that, and different patches, different sizes and shapes with squares and all that kind of stuff. But it's like a giant net that's all around this valley, right? And it wants me to go to the light. Now I stay in that valley there, or I go and try to poke at this net and try to get the other side to this. But I think that absolutely the pyramid itself is a deception. It's like trying to distract me. It's trying to keep me from doing, what is it? It's distracting me to go a place that is not best for me, that will get me back into the matrix, if you will, back into the tunnel. And she talks about the void. And I think that's one thing I'm missing. And I need to work on, personally, I need to work on the void. I need to work on it. And that's something that the inner person is telling me, that like I have, a lot of times I fall asleep listening to something on the computer. Or, you know what I mean? The computer's still running, or there's still light on the house. I need to like turn off all the lights and get comfortable with just being in the darkness, pure darkness. And whatever shows up between my ears, or maybe it may manifest in front of me, I need to learn how to just face that, if that makes any sense. And just say, I have my protective bubble. You have nothing you can do to me, and learn how to defend myself and being in that void. That's interesting. She also talked about is that these spirits, one of the things, you can come back here as a ghost, if you will. And I think that's what a lot of stuff that's happening in the woods and around us, whether poltergeists or not. These are spirits. These are others of like us, other beings of energy that have just chose not to go back into the tunnel of light, or go after the light, but haven't figured out that portal, that opening, that way out. Now, our ancestors talked about that there's certain stars that we're supposed to go to and focus on. That could be the answer. I don't know. All I know is where I'm at now is I don't trust the light. I'm not going into that light, and I don't want to come back here. And I've seen, I've filmed this stuff. I've had certain, I've observed things. I've experiences that tell me that a lot of these entities that I see when I was doing my field research, is that these things are trapped entities, beings. The part of the matrix, some are actually part of the deception themselves, part of these entities that are out there to deceive us. But there's also other ones that are just like us that are stuck here. They're screwed. They're here. And it's not, I don't think they're like bad people. Yeah, the pyramid was and is not a mechanism for good. I totally agree with you. I mean, the pyramid, just look at it. The pyramid is symbolism. Pyramid, first of all, is this whole fascistic power structure. As above, so below, right? So that's what I was thinking. I was getting at. And she talks about, too, on the other side, right? They have these cities in the astral plane, in the astral realm, and that these cities are even more fascistic. And she talks about called this entity Satan, right? The adversary, these I don't know, these reptilian type beings. Which I filmed one. Well, I don't think going to Mars is a good idea, from what I filmed. Their fangs and everything. She talked about how more fascistic and even more totalitarian it is on the other side, right? So as above, so below. You see what's going on with all these, whether it's China or it's Rome or it's even Moscow, all these different empires, whereas Russia or the West with the Vatican and its monarchies, subordinate monarchies, it's all this whole control. You can see the matrix, right? They're trying to make it a total, absolute, full dominance, right? Control you in every aspect of your life in the physical realm. That's apparently that's what's like in the spiritual realm, but even on steroids. So that's not a good thing. So there's like that's one of the things we got to get used to as well, is that we need to learn how to be our own person, not only in this world. And they're going to try to convince you that it's selfish, but it's not selfish. You're trying to find yourself again. This system that we're in, whether it's in the physical realm or the spiritual realm, they're trying to convince you that you have to be part of the whole, if you will. One in the wrong way, right? How do I say this? So what's his face? David Icke, he talks about you're a drop of water in the ocean, and we are the ocean. Well, yeah, we're part of this being of energy, of this ultimate energy of consciousness is what it is, right? But that doesn't mean we are supposed to lose our sovereignty in all this. What the system wants us to lose all our sovereignty, just to be another brick in the wall, to be another brick in the pyramid, to just be part of the system and just go along with things. I don't think that's what the true oneness is, when we are encouraging each other to be our authentic, true selves, in which there are not masters, gods, people or entities ruling over us, but we are our own entities and beings. And when we are true to ourselves and to each other, then there's obviously a lot more of this thing that we want, which is this peace, harmony. If you want to call it love, but just remember, love's emotion and it'll trick you. So, but wherever it is, there's respect for each other, for one's own personal well-being and who they really are. We're not out to control each other, to tell each other how we're supposed to live, right? So, if that makes any sense, so we're allowed to be our own authentic selves, part of the greater whole, but that part that's where we're talking about, where pure light, if that's what it is, I don't even know about that. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. There's just this, you're allowed to be who you are, and you're not imposing yourself on others, and you're not trying to manipulate and control others or tell others how they're supposed to live. You're just doing your thing, and the other entity is doing their thing, and we might interact once in a while, but we're not trying to manipulate and control each other, if that makes sense. In this realm and in the astral plane, it's all about manipulating, controlling each other, right? You got to fall in line. You got to be part of this hierarchical structure in which you're bowing to something else. We're not supposed to bow to anything. That's what it comes down to. So that's how I'm seeing it. So, but anyways, it's back to this lucid dream thing, right? So I'm in this womb, and there's that net, and I'm trying to find a way out. I didn't quite find the way out, but I also had enough sense not to follow that light. It was on the other end of this great womb, like opening this, I call it womb, this like valley, another side, there's light that is pulsating and wants me to come to it. What I am at this point is I need to be able to be comfortable in the void, the darkness, and to be at peace and comfortable, which really in the end, myself, right? If that makes any sense. Can I be okay being with myself? Or do I need to, in order to feel that I am something, I need to belong, be part of someone else? If that makes any sense. Did I speak? I don't know if I've showed this before or not in my talking. They probably have decided to war God at some point in time in the early creation and through the course of their own. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence that there was some kind of war that went on. And that's how this place was created, through this some kind of war in which this part of the turf was lost. They are where they have put themselves. Okay. So the thing is, I don't want to come back here. I don't know how you feel. I don't want to come back. I don't like this place. I don't. These things that I've seen on the other side, and the things that I've heard from other people have seen on the other side, is I don't trust them. There's no reason to trust them. They deceived us to come back here. She talks about soul contracts. All soul contracts we need to break, period. All soul contracts, any contract, we have to say is null and void, is force, coercion, and it's not legal. Just like it is here, right? And in this realm, right? If you're forced to sign a contract based on what is it called? Coercion, distress, then it's null and void. This is what happened to that gal, smart gal, doctor. She is forced to agree to this stuff and was forced, literally pushed into the vortex, right? So we don't want to do that. So we have to learn how to say no. We have to really learn how to say absolutely no. I'm not following anybody else's course but my own. If that makes any sense. I'm following my own course. And if I'm seeing that what people around me are trying to manipulate me to believe into something that clearly is not true, I have to stand up against it, or I have to say, no, I'm not going to be part of that. The only word I have seen is man's willingness to follow Satan. Well, Satan, I don't think it's what is Satan? You know what I mean? Satan wasn't able to do anything except if Yahweh told him to do it. And you need to study that properly. Satan doesn't have any power. God is the worst thing ever, I think. Such amounts of unnaturalness and godliness, lawlessness. Yeah, it's once again, godliness. Why? Don't follow God. No gods. and don't give, as entity, this thing that's called Satan any power. If you read the Bible properly, and it's Job, Satan didn't do anything without Yahweh and the day mirror's permission. In fact, Yahweh's was his idea to cause who of all people, Job, to the most righteous person there ever was, right? Supposedly, to suffer. It wasn't Satan's idea; it was God's. If you don't believe me, read it again. New eyes. It's 100% that way. It was Yahweh's idea. So no gods, no angels, no archons, no higher beings, nothing. No, there's no bowing to anybody anymore. Maybe, except God, Satan, two sides of the same coin. Yeah, well, to me, that's what I say. I've been telling people for a long time. Well, listen, Satanism and Christianity are two sides of the same coin. So I mean, it's just like if you believe anything. Well, let's put it this way: it would be a good idea to detach from anything that Bible says. Do not be part of it, because it's black magic and it will trap you. So it's the reason why I burnt the damn Bible. So that's after studying it intensely for a decade. I mean, I literally, when the dude, there's very few people that can say this. I guarantee you there's only a handful of people that can say what I'm about to say. I read the Bible all the way through from the very first verse on Genesis to the very last verse in Revelation twice online, and the New Testament all the way through 6 times. So I reassure you to stay away from that stuff. It will trip you up. Yeah, there's part of the problem with this just first of all, Christ, you got to understand something about this Christ thing. Christ did not come to bring peace. If you read it properly, what he says, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword to divide father from son, from mother-in-law from daughter-in-law. And he said, you cannot follow him unless you hate your family and you hate other people. I don't think that you want to be, after what we just got through talking, do not be if you are hoping to see something that's called Christ on the other side, or Jesus, that thing is going to lead you back into the light. That's what it's going to do. Yeah, I got the book, The Trivium, by the way. I used to know Jan Irving. Jan Irving was the first guy that ever introduced the Gnostic media is what it used to be called. And this is not a decade ago. He's the first guy who ever interviewed me. There are kingdoms, lords, and kings. Be sure, yeah, and don't be part of any of it. But the only one Lord of Lords. Yeah, well, that's according to the Bible. But can you prove that? Can you prove there's only one Lord of Lords? Can you prove that? Because I think that's part of the deception. In fact, I know it's part of the deception. And there's only one Lord. No. It's just something they want to trip you up with. So anyways, so this whole thing about following other entities, following other gods, I know it's comfortable. It makes people feel more comfortable. It makes them feel like they're doing the right thing. But the only Lord of Lords that should matter is you. You are the Lord of your own, right? If you're not prepared to be your own Lord, then you're probably prepared yourself to come back here. Jesus is out. Aquarius will bring the Rahman. Yeah, oh yeah, they're Rahman. This what's his face? What's his name? Remind me of the guy's name again. Shit, I can't remember the guy's name now. Who talks about it? Anyways, he's from 100 years ago. People still listen to. Mostly astral projections are by ungodly temples. What? One cannot go by others' experiences. We have our own experiences in this realm. Yeah. Well, I don't know about ungodly. First of all, the people that claim to be godly people generally are very fascistic, two-faced liars who don't know the Bible or God or the Bible, don't even know God. Because if they knew God and God of the Bible, the last thing they would ever do is believe in that. Well, it's up to you, man. I'm not going that way. You have your right to your things. To me, I know that there's no good shepherd called Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus. It's just something that I convinced myself and that other people try to convince me of. But when I really looked into it, there was nothing good. Nothing good ever happened with Jesus. If Jesus was so wonderful and so great, then why does he allow all the innocent children to suffer terribly who are innocent? You know what I mean? Terrible things. And if Christians really had any magical powers in the name of Jesus, why don't you all go over to these children hospitals and heal them? You aren't going to do that because it's not real. Jesus, an egregore, he's a false entity. He's a what am I going to say this? A mind projection, a thought form, an egregore, and everything in the name of Jesus has not been good. So it's funny, and the only people that are quote unquote helped are like the worst of the worst human beings, right? Are in the most desperate of situations. But in the end, it always ends up the same way. Just like every other of these forms of magic, when you are working with these dark spirits, there's always the end, and what happens in the name of Jesus? Families are destroyed, whole cultures are destroyed, people's lives are totally screwed up. And look at, there's supposed to be unity in the name of Jesus. And he said, you would know that it was true if there was unity, right? And guess what? There's no unity in Christianity. Christianity has close to 48,000 different sects alone, in which the Christians can't unite at all. Who Jesus is, what Christianity is, who God is. Clearly, this is not the case. I've seen nothing but confusion and bickering and fighting and all sorts of lying and deception in the name of Jesus. I haven't seen anything that truly, I used to believe in it until I really seriously, really looked at myself and looked at what Christianity is, who Jesus is, and I realized this egregore called Jesus is just another deception. I know it makes a lot of people upset, but I challenge anyone to prove me wrong. Don't just parrot what the Bible says. Prove that I am wrong, or that you're right, that Jesus is going to be your Savior and Savior. Because the fact of the matter is, Jesus is not coming to save you. Jesus is well, what do you think Christianity is? Communism and fascism are the same thing. They're just two sides of the same coin. It's all about control. It's about controlling you, about keeping you from having freedom of conscience, a freedom to question, to explore, right? And that's what Christianity is, just another control system. It's just another layer of the matrix. Unfortunately, I wish it was just my opinion. But the fact of the matter is, sorry, D-dubs, communism and I meant to say, sorry, Julio, I meant to say D-W. Communism and fascism are two sides of the same coin, just like Satanism and Christianity are two sides of the same coin. Dualism, I used to really, really believe in, but the more and more I look at this place of creation that we live in, the darkness, negativity outweighs the light in this place. It really does. So dualism, I don't think is really, I think they give the illusion, a holographic illusion, so with night and day. But guess God thing in the Bible, people are like, oh yeah, it's about love. No, with God in the Bible says I created both good and evil. He created it, not Satan. Satan was just some lower form thing that was just doing the will of this demiurge, this entity, this thing. But even then, when you really look this stuff down and really break it down, this whole thing about Satan or God and focusing on one entity is a perfect example of scapegoating. So if you focus on Satan, you miss the big picture of all these archonic forces, all these beings all around us that are parasitically using us and exploiting us. So you're always focusing on one entity while missing what's really going on, this group, this collective of entities that are actually causing all the problems. It's just like God, right? I would just focus on this one thing, God, and this one thing. As long as I believe in the God and not in myself, then I'll be okay. But the problem is there's just overwhelming evidence that when you go to the other side and you're going to be waiting for Jesus or God or whatever, this light, and you go right back in here because this God doesn't give a shit about you. The God of this world, this creation, I'm not talking about the creator, the thing that's outside of this realm, if it is possible. And when I talk about creator, I'm not talking about an entity. I'm talking about force, like super force or something like that. It's not something to be worshipped. It's not asking to be worshipped. It doesn't want to be worshipped. Okay? It's just as a force. It's not an entity. So, but the God of this thing, this realm, if it gave a shit about you, it would not allow us to be here in the first place. It wouldn't cause us to have this suffering and pain, this mindless suffering and pain. There's no point in it. What's the point in it? You're not learning anything. Oh, it's to choose it over what? Pain and suffering? Well, the thing all it's going to do is offer you the pain and suffering. It's overwhelming. The evidence is whatever people call as God is just oh, give me a break, Julio. I've done everything. All I know is you're making that stuff up. I did everything. I'm the one that did all the praying. I'm the one who was constantly talking to Jesus 24/7. I guarantee you I did a hell of a lot more than you ever will, because you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. We are all a point of this pendulum of fascism and fashion, these communist stuff. Yeah, it is the same thing, basically. Do as thou wilt literally means, oh, give me the group. Give me a break. You're wrong. Of course I'm wrong. Now prove to me I'm wrong. You won't be able to. Don't be angry and hateful. Why are you doing this? I know why you're doing this, because this is what Christianity does every single time. It convinces people to do that. How am I being hateful or angry? You're welcome not to accept eternal salvation. There is no eternal salvation in the name of God. It's just you pretending there is. Attempting emotions is part of the character of God. You could benefit from. Oh, I've heard this stuff 1,000 times. How many times have I been told in the past decade that have you ever prayed for yourself? Have you ever received the Holy Spirit? These are the same people who are so okay. Julio, did Jesus say he was coming back in his generation? Now you be honest about things, because this is what this is about, right? It's about the way, the truth, and the life. Did Jesus make it very clear that he was coming back in his generation? Did his apostles say the same thing? And if you say no, I know you're lying. 100% you're lying. And if Jesus said he came back, he's come back in his generation, it's supposed to be 2,000 years ago. And Jesus said that any of those who followed him would do greater things than him. That means you should be able to heal people. You should be able to do amazing things. Jesus did come back and go back and redid Acts, my dude. Come on, man. Jesus did come back, did he? So you believe in the Great Perusia. That means that Jesus showed up, or when, 70 AD for the destruction of Jerusalem? So here's the more important thing. Instead of you attacking me, Jesus said that anybody that follows Jesus, should do greater things than him. That you should be able to heal people, move mountains, do amazing things. Can you do any of that? Attacking me or proselyting, trying to convince that you got it figured out, which I know you don't. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I know you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I mean, because if you would not be talking what you're talking about. And this is all part of this whole thing. And this is all part of this. Learn how to say no to this stuff. Learn how not to say no to this thing called God, our angels, our ascended beings, our masters. You got to say no to this stuff. You can say, you know what? No way. I'm not buying into it. You have to prove to me, not from words, from a book, you have to prove to me that you are an actual follower of Jesus. So you should be able to do amazing things, like heal people, like go to the hospital and heal people, because that's what the promise is. And if you can't do it, then either Jesus is a lie and a liar, or you're a liar, or both. There's a third option. And I think that's what happens when you follow these books, like the Bible or the Quran, is it just makes you a liar. This is what it does. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm great. It's wonderful that you have never been sick your adult life. That's fantastic. And I hope that it stays that way. Now, if you have all this amazing power in the name of Jesus, heal me. To start with. Or better yet, here's a more important thing. Why don't you go to a children's hospital and there's kids that are suffering from horrendous, terrible diseases and heal them in the name of Jesus. And if you can't do that, then none of it matters. It's wonderful that you're never been sick yet, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get sick. How old are you, Julio? Are you in your 30s, 40s? How old are you? Because I was perfect health until I was 43 after the swine flu jab. So, how old are you? How old are you if you're in perfect health? And why are you in perfect health and other people are not? What makes you better than the child? What makes you better than that 4-year-old kid right now who's suffering from all these terrible diseases? Maybe it's cancer, whatever it may be, some genetic terrible disease. I mean, you're 44. Well, when I was 44, I thought I was 24 too. Someday I will catch up to you, I guarantee you. Then you'll realize there's more going on than meets the eye. So I'm glad that you've been in perfect health. Good for you. Yeah, but you don't have, Jesus is not real. The Bible is a book of black magic, and it's all about deception. So, and the smartest thing you do is let it go. Or challenge it, prove it. Prove to yourself that 100% it's real. Not to me, not to anyone else. You prove that it's real. Not memorize simply verses out of context from the Bible, but read it for what it really says. Ask yourself honestly, if Jesus showed up, 2,000 years ago, why is this place such an awful place still? And you start to change things. Yeah, I was doing the same thing. Good for you. I'm glad you take care of yourself. That's what you should do. Take care of yourself. Don't forget to take care of other people. But just remember something. Are you saying that you're better than that 4-year-old child who didn't ask for all the suffering and pain? Are you saying you're better than the 2-year-old? How about that? Are you better than, say, my niece who ended up being poisoned by the infant jibby jab back in the 1990s? And she is paralyzed from the head down for 18 years. Are you better than her? She didn't do anything wrong. Where's her protection? My mom was a devout Christian. She didn't do anything wrong. Shouldn't all that stuff been amazingly transferred to her granddaughter? No, it didn't. Because the problem is that Christianity is very narcissistic in a negative way. Now we're supposed to think about ourselves, yes, in the sense that we're supposed to fight against this system that we're under, right? But it made it very clear in this study that doesn't mean we don't care about each other. We should show compassion and empathy, and to be there for other people. That's not the same thing as saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be part of the matrix and the system, this system of deception," right? And you have to think the problem with Christianity does it turns you into a very narcissistic person, right? It's all about you, and you forget about everyone else. And the only power that you have in the end of the day is try to convince people to follow the cult that you're wrapped in right now. But you have no answers to these people's problems. All you can say is that Jesus will fix it. Well, the problem's Jesus ain't going to fix it. And Jesus is going to wait on the other side to deceive you and everyone else. Oh, that's good. And you'll be coming back here. What are you talking about? Are you actually hearing voices? No, I'm not hearing voices. I'm just speaking the truth. And the truth is this, is that Jesus, this entity, this egregore, in the name of Jesus, billions of people's lives have been destroyed. Thousands of cultures have been extinguished. Billions of people's lives have been, every person I know who follows Jesus, their families end up screwed up and destroyed. Endless terrible things are happening in the name of Jesus. And Jesus doesn't do a thing to stop any of it. None of it. That's because Jesus ain't real. He's part of the deception. You save your prayers. And I send it back 70 times back to you. You'll take that prayer and send it back to you and help you wake up. I don't need your prayers. I don't need a curse. Please don't curse me. I don't need any more than that. But it's funny how this is happening, because it's happening everywhere I go, man, and everything, because it's like because the archonic forces they use people like Christians. They used me at one time, or Mohammedists, or whoever, to try to sway me to come back into the matrix. I don't want to come back to the matrix. I want to leave the matrix. Sorry, I don't want to be part of anything of that. Just like these ascended masters and these angels and Jesus. This is what I say to Jesus. Jesus, you're responsible for all the misery and under your name, and you've done nothing about it. So this is what I say to you, Jesus. Go screw yourself. You have no power, Jesus. You have no power in me. You have no power in anybody who decides to say no to you. And I say no to you, Jesus. You're an evil egregore. You're part of the matrix, and you deceived nothing but billions of people and gave people false hope. You are not the light of the world. At least you're not the light for me. You might be the light of the world, Jesus, because every time somebody follows you, they come back here. So congratulations, Jesus. You have zero power. Jesus, you have no power. I have more power than Jesus does. You know how I know that? Because I have empathy and I have compassion and love. I can love my son. I take care of my son. I feed my son. I make sure there's shelter over his head. Jesus doesn't do any of that. Jesus doesn't do anything for anybody except enslave people. See, buddy? So everyone left. It's cool. That's the way it should be. See, because that's the thing, you need to hear it. Everyone needs to hear it, the truth. Jesus has no power. Jesus is part of the deception. It's part of the matrix. I mean, you're not going to bring me back into it. And if it means that you and 200 people stop following this channel, it's not going to make a difference, because I'm not going to follow Jesus, and I'm not going to follow Yahweh, and I'm not going to follow Muhammad, and I'm not going to follow Allah, and I'm not going to follow any of these other entities. If they've had all the thousands and thousands of years to change things for the better, and they've done nothing to that. They've destroyed people's lives. And they're part of the matrix. And this is part of what I'm saying about saying no. This is part of the journey, right? Is being able to say no to this stuff, right? You got to say it. And then I don't hate Julio. I know where he's coming from. And I don't hate anybody else that believes in this stuff. I feel for you. I know that you're being incredibly deceived, 100% deceived, and all the weight of evidence is on my side, and it's not on your side. Anybody that follows Jesus, it's not on your side, it's on my side. And I noticed something, that when people follow Jesus, worse things happen. Just something to say, to think about. So anyway, so avoid these things. Like, and we also, there's another thing that's talked about was the stairway, right? Here's another thing. You hear a lot about this stuff in the woods. People will go in the woods and they'll end up like in some kind of vortex once again, or some kind of portal, or some kind of like things just change. They lose time and all that. And they'll find like a stairway in the middle of the woods. Got to avoid those stairways, because those stairways, stairway to heaven, they usually lead to a trap. So I think the only way to resist any of this stuff is to really say no to everything. I am not going to be part of any of this. I'm not going to be part of any movement. I'm not going to be part of any religion. I'm not going to follow any God. I'm not going to follow anything that claims to be superior than me. I'm not going to follow a damn book, a collection of books that's been proven over and over again to be wrong. And I know it makes people upset, but, you know, what else can you do? So try to be honest, right? Try to make your amends. As part of things about this place is to make your amends. That's to say, no, I was wrong about this stuff when it came to Jesus and the Bible. And if you don't like me before it, or you don't want to be around me, then don't be around me. So with that, I think we've done this now for, it's going on 2.5 hours. Let's play some music. Those who stuck around, thanks. And as far as who you know, no hard feelings. I know where you're coming from. But I just asked you to seriously challenge your beliefs. Don't try to challenge me. Challenge your beliefs. Prove to yourself that Jesus is real. Be honest about it. Demonstrate it. Prove that Jesus is real. One more thing. I go for good, Mike. Okay, all right. At least stop talking about those drug prescriptions. Stop taking. Okay, here we go. Here goes the personal attacks. See, this is the thing, Julio. This is what's so evident about the fact that it doesn't work. What does every single Christian do? Ends up, because you don't have any footing to stand on, you go at the ad hominem attacks. You accuse me of taking prescription drugs and eating organic bud. I'm sorry. I am sorry. First of all, the only thing I've taken today is Lyrica. And in the morning, I took a half of Norco. And it's now freaking, so I'm already having Jesus as King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Good for you. I hate all you want. And hey, I'm not hating you at all. I'm not the one attacking you, dude. You're the one attacking me. You're the one that's just got through attacking me. I didn't attack you. Darkness hates the light. I get you. Darkness hates the light, doesn't it? Satanic alchemy. Okay, now I really going. So yeah, that's amazing. Except for one thing. You're making the claim that Satan has more power than your God. That's what most Christians they do. They say Satan has more power than God. Really? It's the God of this world, Satan. Until you really read about it and read it properly, and you realize, no. All the evil in the world, it happened, what, in the name of Satan or in the name of Jesus or Allah? Yeah, it was the name of Jesus. Not in the name of Satan. Because Satan is just a generic phrase for most of in the Bible, is Nebuchadnezzar. And just like what they're saying here, you know, with this on the other side, and these people bowing down, and Satan showing up. So, all right, okay. So Satan, what is Satan? You never explain what is Satan. So is it some kind of reptilian? Is that what it is? I mean, the more you look into this stuff, the more you realize these people probably in these cities on the other side of the astral belts or astral plane, these big cities, they're Christians, they're Muslims, and they're apparently Jesus didn't save them. Even when you think about the New Jerusalem, which is a box, literally with like a beehive, like where people would raise bees, and one of those beehives, the boxes, and they have little openings and slits on the four sides that let them come in and out. It's just all another trap. It's just another deception. Why would anybody want to do that? So, no, I don't see any hope in the name Jesus. I see nothing but more deception. I know that it upsets people, but yeah, well, prove to everyone that Satan's a reptilian. Give us some examples. Give us evidence that Satan is no. You can't quote the claim, the book for the book. You have to actually give proof that Satan is a reptilian. So I think what has happened is, remember, these entities on the other side, they project themselves as anything other than they really are. So all these people are bowing down to this thing they call Satan and all afraid of it and all that. It's because, these entities want to present themselves as Satan, even though no one has any idea really what Satan looks like, any more than anybody knows what Jesus looks like, or Yahweh. Oh, there's consuming fire. That's nice. Consuming fire, kind of like the light. To go into the light, consuming fire, right? Or and on it goes. Or Allah looks like, or anything else. No one knows what these things look like, except like the image that most people have of Jesus is the gay lover of an artist. I think it was Michelangelo, was it, or was it Da Vinci? One of the two. And anyways, it was a grandson of a pope. That's what most people's image of what Jesus is. Is that Jesus? How do you know it's going to be Jesus when you see the other side was Jesus? You're not going to know it's Jesus. How are you going to know it's going to be Satan when nobody really knows what Satan looks like? No one actually does, because these are all scapegoats. See, these are all things for you to focus on outside of yourself. You see, no one is forcing you, but stop the hate. I'm not stopping. What's the hate? So then you accused me of being a drug addict. That was hateful. That was really hateful what you said. That was really mean. Now you're saying I'm hating. Why? Because I'm challenging what you're saying? That's what religious people do. Open the book and read the scripture sometime about the snake in the garden. Yeah, the snake in the garden was telling the truth. Whereas Beelzebub was lying and keeping people enslaved in that garden. Well, they might be seeing something that's demonic. I don't know. They are just trying to distract you. Gaslighting is a demonic spirit. Who's gaslighting? The snake woke them up. That's right. That's right. The snake is the one who actually did. You see, everything the law of reversal is applied all the way across the board, including the Bible. So they demonize the good guy and they glorify the bad guy. And of course, Christians always say the same thing. Stuff like, and I hate to say that because I don't want to attack you, Julio, but gaslighting, who's gaslighting you? So you accuse me of being a drug addict? You question if I'm lying, if you're lying. See, what else did you? I thought you were out too. You said you're going to be out. You're supposed to be able to do all these amazing things as a Christian, and you can't do any of it. I'm glad that you're healthy, at least physically. So the snakes woke him up. That's right. Someone is villainous. Yeah, I would have to say that the God of the Bible is an awful monster. I mean, that God of the Bible agrees in slavery, anti-women, has no problem murdering young children, throwing them against the rocks. The God of the Bible, by the way, if you actually is the Old Testament, they say it's Satan. So the reptilians drew us away from Satan, but you want the glorify. I don't know what you're saying. Why do I want to glorify Satan? It makes, go on. You all have good night. Okay, I do plenty. I am well, thanks. Okay. I mean, and somehow, sorry, it was a typo. I meant, and somehow. Yeah. So, I mean, clearly in the Bible, you read it properly, the serpent in the garden wasn't necessarily the bad guy. So, why was it so terrible to know of the knowledge of good and evil? And why did this God, because there's two creation stories, right? There's the one in Genesis 1, there's the one in Genesis chapter 2. So chapter 1 has one story, the other one has Genesis 2. And the thing is, in Genesis 2, this God, Yahweh, he wanted Adam and Eve to be enslaved in this garden. And as long as they did everything, just as long as they didn't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good or evil, why would that be such a big deal? I'll tell you why, because if people would know that we're good and evil, they would realize they're living in evil. This place is evil. And then they realize the God that created this place, the Damers, Yahweh, Yalzabalza, was Yalzi-Balzi, whatever the hell I want to call him. He's the one that created this mess, this abortion of a thing, right? And that his all day was to create a slave race. That's what it is. But of course, Yahweh had to blame everyone else but itself. So, right? Like in the book of Job. So it wasn't Job's idea. It wasn't Satan's idea to tempt Job. It was Yahweh's idea. He's the one that said it. If you don't believe me, read Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 and try to disprove that it was not Yahweh's. And what was Yahweh's great idea? It said, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to give you permission, Satan, because of course he doesn't want to dirty his own hands, right? So what he wants is to Satan go down there and to wipe out his family, his children, and his home, his livelihood, everything, and just have his life absolute misery, right? So he loses everything, right? But he never denied Yowzy-Bowzy. And so in the end, what happened? He got what? 7 times more? Now think about what's really going on here. The way dismissing his own children. It's like trying to say, okay, so Yowzy-Bowzy shows up to me and says, as long as you don't do, I'm going to have this Satan character because I don't want to dirty my own hands. I'm too busy. I'm going to have this Satan character do my bidding. So Satan, you go down and you tempt Michael Adams. You take away his son and everything, right? And as long as he doesn't deny me, I'll come back. I'll give him seven children instead of the son. As if my one son didn't matter. As if you can replace the one son with 7 new ones, right? As if human beings are like replacement. They're like items. They're like commodities. But that's how this system works. You are. That's where the God sees you as a commodity. I'm only here until your next outburst, okay? Or fit against my Lord Jesus, the rising Spirit of God, whatever the hell that is. Speaking of the covenant, why make someone trial to see if they could murder their own son for you. Why he do that to Abraham? Yeah. Well, Abraham, that's one sick story in its own right. When you think about it, Abraham, here's this dude. He's interacting with this entity. Can't make his mind if it's God or an angel. Red flags there, because whenever these angels show up, bad things are going to happen, right? And so this something possesses Abraham. Say, let's go up in the mountain. Let's make an altar and a burning altar, and let's put your son on there. And I want you to sacrifice him. You know what I mean? And so, okay, so he gets up there. Can you imagine the trauma that poor, so it was Abraham, Isaac. So what Isaac was going through, here he is, his own dad. He's hovering over him with some giant knife or whatever the hell it is. Maybe it was a rock. Who knows? And he's like, here's a scene, his own dad about ready to what? Unalive him, kill him? Think how sick that story is. It's really sick. But that shows love to this God, you see, because this God is a God of death and of deception and of misery and pain, because this is what his creation is all about, right? So, but he showed all, and so then this angel shows up and says, oh, stop. I got a better idea. There's a goat over there. Kill that instead. So as long as something's being killed, everything's great. It's beautiful, right? So there's this entity, and it's like, yeah, well, at least you're willing to kill your own son. So I'll tell you what, I'll give you the next best thing. We'll give you a goat to kill. This entity really loves to kill things and loves death and pain and suffering. And not only that, when you think about this, like Jesus, this is how much this God loves, right? So it's supposed to be his own begotten son, right? So with this God, his infinite wisdom and all the millions of other options he had, he said, you know what? This is what we're going to do. I'm going to send my only begotten son. And when he comes down here, you know what? We're going to, he's going to have one tough day, 24-hour period, right? But in that tough day, this is what's going to happen, my son. I'm going to have you whipped brutally with this, and all the flesh off your body be ripped off you and all this kind of stuff. And they're going to have you speared. I'm going to have you hung on a cross, and it's spikes running through your wrists and your hands and your feet. And that will be atonement for all mankind. And as long as people believe in that brutal, nasty sacrifice, everything's okay. Just as long as people believe in that blood sacrifice, then everything's great. So this God had no other options, or could not think of any other options, except to literally torture, maim, and kill his son. Now, the funny thing about the whole thing is that Jesus was told that he wouldn't lose anything. So meanwhile, there's people who, there's like let's go back to the children. So there's some 4-year-old kid right now who's been suffering terrible, awful things, health issues and all that. Maybe he's been violated by his family, father or mother, aunt, uncle, whatever. Terrible things happen to him on a daily basis, being starved, had terrible disease and all that. So literally are suffering every single day, right? Or let's think about my niece who had none of those things, except just was damaged by the infant GD jab and was paralyzed from the head down with this rare disease in which she wasn't able to talk or eat. And she, all she could do is move her eyes and smile or maybe laugh or cry. That was it. All right. And I mean, I spent 8 years taking care of her every day, giving her a bath, changing her diapers, changing her G-tube. Wasn't even my child, right? Taking her out to the park, watching people look at me and everyone judge. I could feel it. Is that your daughter? Is this, people, women wouldn't even date me because of it, right? Because I was taking care of her. So this is how this wonderful thing. So I did that every day for 8 years. That's every day. I showed my love to my niece the first day than Jesus ever did for anyone else, except everyone else wants to make believe that Jesus is actually doing something for you. So it's like my buddy Eddie, who's a truck driver. He's a long distance truck driver, goes all over the country, delivering all sorts of things, goods, foods, and everything. Eddie, like he says, I do more for people. I get no credit than Jesus ever did, because Jesus never did anything. It's just an illusion, man. And that's all designed to keep you to come back here. Jesus never did anything for anybody. Now, a lot of people lie about it and will claim about it and say that they amazingly were blessed where everyone else wasn't. But what about all the other people? What about my friend Jeff for 30 some years? A devout Christian, more devout than you'll ever be, or anyone else that I know of as far as a Christian. I mean, he knew that Bible he knows that Bible better than anyone. He was constantly praying in Jesus, God, and constantly recognizing him, constantly recognizing Jesus, always in his life, right? And in the end, what did he find out? The answer is that none of it was real. And there's billions of people that have the same experience. So why is it that some people Jesus gives a shit about, but other people he could care less about? I thought he's the Prince of Love and Peace, right? I mean, here's another shocking thing I discovered after my research. There's not one thing in the Old Testament that even talks about Jesus. Literally, not one. Then you start learning about Greek mythology and demigods. And what is Jesus? It's a demigod. What is a demigod? A demigod has a godlike father and a human mother. And then you start realizing this is just all make-believe. And here's the thing. It's very clear over and over again that the New Testament, that Jesus was supposed to come back in his generation, that all the judgment is supposed to happen on Jerusalem. And yet, for 1,700 years, the Christian church has tried to be evasive about it. And look at the thousands of people named following Jesus who said the world was going to end yesterday, or a week ago, or a month ago, or 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 10 years ago. A lot of people are saying now that the 8th of April is supposed to be, there's supposed to be something going on at the heavens, eclipse and all that, and that's when Jesus is going to show up. And Jesus, once again, won't show up. So, I mean, Jesus is not supposed to be an author of confusion. Yet everybody that I hear who follows Jesus is extremely confused. Extremely confused. And the best they can do in the end is attack a person like me who's saying, listen, you're not speaking the truth. You know what I mean? You really don't know what you're talking about. That's sad, delusional. Yeah, Car's all right. So I'm sad and delusional. Thank you. See, here's the thing, right? But you're demonstrating what this Spirit of Christ does. It causes a person to do the complete opposite than what you're supposed to be doing, right? Since you really don't have any magical powers to heal anybody or make the world a better place through Jesus, all you can do is then go on ad hominem attacks, make false claims what the Bible doesn't say, claim that's make it say that Jesus is a magical man that can fix things and fix the world. If you just believe in what? Jesus. Well, I guarantee you, in fact, I don't even need to guarantee you. I have it documented. Whether it was my old channels that were taken down or newer ones, I have it documented that I've read the Bible all the way through twice online, which is more than I guarantee you did. New Testament twice, 6 times, that I'm constantly in prayer, constantly talking to Jesus, constantly saying, well, you know what? And in the end, you know what I discovered? Jesus was never there. And I think that's the greatest blessing of all I ever got, is that Jesus was never there. Because then that woke me up to the realization that I was totally deceived under this terrible deception of what is called Jesus, this egregore, this entity that offers up false promises that bless some people as long as they keep on. Actually, there's no, they just claim that, right? But in the meantime, all the rest of the people, all the innocent children who have done nothing wrong, and then they'll say, oh, it's because it's curses of the family, generational curse and all that crap, right? And then you start realizing, you said, you know what? There is no Jesus, is there? There never was a Jesus. In fact, there's zero evidence, zero archaeological evidence, zero historical evidence that this entity, this egregore, this Greek demigod ever existed. There's zero evidence that it ever existed. I mean, zero. That the only evidence that you have, period, comes from the New Testament, and then in which there is not one single eyewitness to it. Not one. It's not even me making it up. He was there. He has always been there. Sure. All right, Tony, how's it going? I'm straight. I keep the covenant myself. And okay, good. He is the creator. Quite listening. I don't need to listen to Jeff. In fact, I left the Bible. I burnt the Bible and left Christianity before Jeff did. You didn't know that, did you, Tony? There were over 500 witnesses. No, there was not 500 witnesses. Tony, you're making that up. Just because the Bible says there was, doesn't mean there was. Just because the source, this book of black magic said that there was 500, there actually is no evidence of that claim at all. It's just a matter if you want to believe that or not. I choose not to believe it anymore. So I love this though. Love this. Unfortunately, my loved ones like yourself have failing health. I've had failing health for a long time, and I've done plenty of things, had plenty of prayers, and done plenty of things, and other people pray for me, and nothing's happened. So the evidence is that it was written down by another. No, there's no evidence, Tony. Why are you lying? Why do you guys keep lying? There's no evidence that an eyewitness wrote it down. None. And there's no evidence. And I didn't need Jeff to figure that one out. As I said, I burnt the Bible and left the Christianity and Christ before Jeff did. Oh, nonsense. Even when I had faith, I knew that it wasn't there. Who said the prayer is what Jesus wants for you? Who says prayers is what Jesus wants for you? Luke made it very clear that he was never eyewitness to Jesus. It's very clear in the book that he was not. He wrote it down. There's a letter. There's no evidence that Luke wrote anything. And it's very clear. In fact, Luke makes it very clear he was not an eyewitness. So who cares? I think you went the wrong church. Now, I don't go to churches. I haven't been to church. That's one thing I realized when I decided to turn myself over to Jesus 12 years ago. It was 12 years ago. That I wasn't going to belong to church because I knew all organized religions were corrupt. So, yeah. Tony, man, you know better. Defending the indefensible. I'm going to play some music because I've been going at this for a while. And if people are still around and still want to go after it, I'll go after it. If not, I'll end it. So, anyways, let's play let's play this. What do I want to play? I think I want to play this.
As we sit, watching fade, like a glimmer of hope, ignite tonight. Press on towards the east. The promise of a brighter future. For now, we rest our
So everyone left. That's good. So Jesus wants you to gain knowledge and search wisdom. He wants you to give your heart and your soul to him. I'm not going to give it anything to him. Tony says, of course, they've left. Religion sucks for sure. I love Jesus with all of my heart, though. It's too bad you never had that. I did have that. And it's too bad that you judged me. I used to play bass. I love a good bass song. That's nice. I used to play bass too, Tony, but you're gone. Let's see. I mean, you're not alone. I was led by churches down my path, indoctrination and dogma. I don't belong to any religion and stop harm. Never was my issue. So, anyways, for those who will hear this, who managed to get to this point, I want to thank Tony and Julio for allowing me to demonstrate the importance of saying no to this stuff. Say no to Christianity, to say no to religion, to say no to the matrix, and to say no to the deception that's called Jesus. I appreciate that. If it wasn't for you guys, you wouldn't have the opportunity to demonstrate that. So, yeah. So those who do hear this, think about what I'm saying here. Listen to what the people had to say too about this light, and about this Jesus, and about these these entities. They can pretend to be this, that, and everything else, like Jesus, but there's probably a good chance that it's going to lead you back to the tunnel, the reincarnation path. So, but that's okay. If that's what you want, that's not what I want. I don't want to come back here. I owe Jesus nothing. I owe Christianity nothing. I owe nothing to this world except to be the best person I can and to be there and be as honest as I can. And if it means that people aren't going to like what I have to say, then that's the way it is. There's nothing more you can do about that. I think, it might be cool to play one more song. It's fun, It's interesting, all the dynamics. It's always the same thing. The personal ad hominem attacks, you have to lie for your faith. And this is what this whole place is about, right? It's about lying for your truth, even though there's no truth in it. So. Peace.